Alright guys, welcome back to the third place match where we're going to have Teddy, excuse me, Alvar going against Imperia. Scorch, what do you think about this match? We have new school versus old school.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see it'll probably both of these players wanting redemption for losing out 3-1 in both of their semifinals, respectively. Um, I think it'll hinge a lot on the winner of the first place. Of course, we kind of always see that in best of series. You have, whoever wins first, the other player can counter, and then you can counter back and forth. If it plays out the way that you would expect, you end up winning 3-2 because you won the first game. Both players we're going to see, we've already seen earlier in the day, and we know both are playing Blue Jump as their first deck. So I think it's going to be very important who wins the first match for how that combos into who wins the series.
Yeah, and Alvar's had a great run this tournament, taking out Loktar, which had a lot of hype built around his abilities in Faeria. He then took out Larico, who defeated Arianel. He then took out Sweetie, our Battle of the Gods and two-time Monthly Cup champion. And then he fell to the might of Teddy, one of the Team Equilibrium members and practice partners of likes of Lou, Modnik, and I assume Dan's, if Dan's is still kicking about. We haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how this goes. Of course, Imperia kind of breaks his streak of the his top placement being second places. This will be his first third place match, so we'll have to see if he can win that versus Alvar, who looked really strong in that match versus Sweetie that you talked about.
Yeah, Alvar's positional play was excellent. Very impressed with him so far, considering I know nothing about him. It's the first time I've ever seen him play in a competitive Faeria landscape, but he did achieve his qualification through ladder grinding. So he had to put the hours in. He had a lot of players to defeat to get to that top spot, and it's not easy to keep top 10 in this game. There are so many good players, so well done to him so far for making this far, but it's not over yet. He could still claim third place and $500, but he has Imperia ahead of him, who is a very accomplished player.
Yeah, we'll have to see if some of those maybe nerves get to him a little bit in the first competitive run here in the third place match. Now against Imperia as well. Obviously, already defeated some big names like we mentioned, so maybe it's not a case of the nerves, but we'll have to see if any of those little positional plays that we talked about how good they were earlier, if they start to fade a little bit now as the nerves and fatigue start to take their toll.
All right, then let's get into this match. On the desk for the cast will be Zologrim and Atmaz, as usual. Take it away, guys.
Hello, thank you very much, Uncle Blad. Hello, Zolagrim.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. We have the third place match here. We have $600 on the line, really, $100 to fourth place, 500 to third. We're going to start with a blue, maybe a little bit of a mirror match here. Imperia versus Alvar. We have the veteran Frenchman against the newcomer Russian. I think we figured out it was Imperia's fifth monthly cup. He's finished second twice before, and we'll see if he can pick up third place today.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very interesting. Both in the finals and the third place match, we have a bit of a newcomer versus old established player kind of thing going. Will be very interesting to see who takes home the trophies. This is also the first time, like you mentioned, that we have an actual prize for the fourth place, which I think is great, because even making it to the semifinals is a very big feat in my opinion, and it's great that every player who gets to the semifinals gets to take something home to show for their triumphs.
Yeah, and Alvar, though he was part of the top left of the bracket, he didn't claim a bounty because he defeated the person who had already who already claimed the bounty. Lyrico took it. So this will be the first opportunity for either of these players to earn some cash, but they're guaranteed some. They've made it this far, and they certainly deserve it after at this point. Okay, so we should talk about the match here. Imperia has already played his Triton trainer. Alvar has one in hand, and he can certainly play it this turn and gather from the right or left. Well, he's going to go left because Imperia started going right. So he just wants to set up the double harvesting. Blue vs. Blue is a tricky matchup. It's going to depend a lot on, well, every match depends on who gets the best trades, but also who is able to harvest a lot from the enemy as well, and then eventually put down that aggressive lake to put down those wave crash colossuses, mystic beasts, things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky matchup to play. It's also a tricky matchup to cast because it's just mind-boggling trying to figure out where they can all move with all the jump and land effects and whatever. So it's fairly hard to predict how each turn is going to play out, but we'll definitely do our best. I think it's safe to assume that Imperia is going to connect with the Triton trainer this turn, but is he going to do it on the left or on the right side?
Oh, but how wrong you are. There's the Prophet of Tides with a campfire, and a land to follow it up means he can clear the enemy trainer off and, harvest with that next turn, provided there's no sort of Falcon Dive effect, which, I don't, well, we know he doesn't have in hand. So, but yeah, exactly like you said, right as you're talking about it, it's impossible to tell sometimes what's going on because of all the Prophet Tides and land movement things. And that was actually a really great move. Now he has that offensive position. He's done that harvesting already. You see his Wave Crash loss is down to 7, and Oliver has no good answer for this. Anything that he has to remove this Triton Trainer is, it's going to cost him a whole creature, basically. The Mystic Beast, I guess, he could play it defensively, but you never want to do that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's definitely not what you necessarily want to see. And I think one thing to note is that, especially in the blue jump mirror, it's just so important who has the initiative. And Imperia, just for having the first creature on the board and being able to attack first with all the movement abilities, was able to clear off Alva's creature. And now he's not able to collect. He's under threat of having anything he plays cleared off with jump or other movement effects. And it's a bit of a tough call to try and get back into a game after you fall behind in the early game against the mirror match.
Yeah, he drew that Mystic Beast. He only has 2 legs. He couldn't do anything. He was forced to play something. So what was that something? A Prophet of Tides. And he had to move it to the right. Well, he chose to move it to the right just to get some harvesting done. That leaves Imperia open completely on the left. Double harvesting every turn. Wave Crash Colossus getting discounted every turn. In addition to that, he can harvest on the right side now with this. With his own Prophet of Tides, if he makes a land, he could even choose to not make a land and use his Water Elemental to make that land. So tons of options here for Imperia. He's definitely in control, and it's Alvar's game to come back from. We'll have to see how aggressive Imperia chooses to play this, because if he wants, he could drop a Colossus right next to his opponent's orb right now.
Yeah, I think he's most likely going to go for the quadruple collect. Double collect on the left, then move with the Triton Trainer with the land he possibly creates with the Water Elemental, and play the second Prophet of Tides to move down next to Alva's second orb and trade away the Prophets, which would put him into an extremely favorable position, in my opinion.
Imperia has had enough, I think. He says, no, I'm not going to be greedy. Oh, no, well, okay. It's moderate. It's moderate aggression. It's not the whole Colossus. But he did not harvest from the top left. Well, that would have been the ultimate greed play. Oh, wait, is he still going to somehow do this? Oh, it's still a little bit of greed. He's going to harvest from the bottom right. Well, most importantly, clearing his opponent's harvester. And now, look at this domination for Imperia. How do you answer this as Alvar? Beru the first wave? That's not what you want.
Maybe Prey? I don't know.
I don't know if he has the Prey card in his deck. He may or may... He may or may not have included it. Yeah, but Bayer is not even playable. It takes 3 link, and then they'll need another fairy after that. So all the creatures he has, the only creature he has is Mystic Beasts. And they don't get that buff by playing it into the enemy wall. They don't even get a jump when you don't play them by the enemy wall. And now there's just 5 damage on the face minimum from Imperia, and the clock is ticking.
Yeah, and double fully discounted Wave Crash Colossus, like 4 or 5 turns into the game. That's just brutal. I have no clue what Alva is going to have to pull out of the hat in order to come back in this game, to be honest.
Imperia's start was just so punishing. That first move where he just cleared off the enemy Triton Trainer. Alvar did play that Triton Trainer. He hasn't even got the benefit from it yet. He hasn't played a jump creature. Mystic Beast doesn't get that benefit. So he hasn't even got the benefit from that hidden tempo. When you're investing in a Triton Trainer, you're investing in extra stats later on in the game, and he hasn't even got to take advantage from that. So, 9 damage here. Wave Crash Colossus #1. He's got another sitting in hand. There's lethal on board right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to be fair, it's not even that Imperia's start was so much better, because they basically had very similar cards in hand, but just Imperia got to aggress first. because he got the first creature down that could attack. So I think if it had been the other way around and Alva would have been the first being able to attack and play his Prophet aggressively, it might just have been the same match, just the other way around. So we'll most likely not find out, but that's just how these mirror matches sometimes play out, I think.
And it's also worth noting there's, he used a campfire to do it. So just to cover what just happened, he prevented lethal from happening by frogifying 2 creatures. There's only 6 damage on board now. There can be no lethal, but Imperia's not too worried about. Oh, he draws another Wave Crash Colossus. So, and there goes 2 Frogifies last turn. 2 Frogifies used already. And there's going to be another one, a Colossus coming down this turn that needs to get Frogified or needs to have some sort of answer. A taunt or something, which in a blue deck is just typically not going to run. Alvar's hand is just looking worse and worse at this point. He may be wanting to draw it out a little bit. Ooh, a mountain. Wait a minute. Is that a BM mountain or is that just a mind game or a mistake?
Playing for the Garadan tech.
Oh, there's Garrett in this deck. Okay, all right. Okay, yeah,
Maybe.
I didn't think.
I don't know. Sometimes it's run in mono blue. We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure, but
I don't think Imperia runs it. At least we haven't seen it so far.
Maybe a bit of a mind game. We don't know. We'll find out. But Imperia definitely taking that first game. Just extremely dominate. Just fully dominate that first game in this best of 5. Alvar will have an opportunity to switch to one of his other decks, which we know are actually. Ooh, I really want to see a red bargain deck come down. I know he's playing that. His other deck is yellow. Red bargain versus blue. Would be interesting to watch. I'm not sure what she thinks his favorite. I think, oh my goodness, he's going to go for it. So with Ignis in the starting hand as well.
Ignis the First Flame, that's just amazing. I really enjoy that card. I really like it. I'm a bit sad that it's not been really viable traditionally, even before the rework. I would love to see Ignis come down and make a difference, but it would have to be a bit later into the game, I suppose. That's why he mulliganed it away.
Yeah, a little bit early for that Ignis. 3 mountains. Yeah, it takes a while to get out. He's got a great opener here, Village Elder. Can have him harvesting on turn 1, the next turn, which is going to do. Queen's Guard, he's got a great taunt going on. I really like Alvar's deck, just the way it's constructed. You don't see, it's not a commonly, at least I haven't seen it today. Oh my god, there's Magnus too. Yeah, I mean, this is a bargain deck. This is a red bargain deck. I don't think there's blue in it. So we're going to get a little treat here.
One thing I'm a bit surprised about is actually seeing the Village Elder in the deck, because in the bargain deck, I think every bit of Faeria basically counts, and if the intention is just to go for the cheapest collector as possible, you should maybe have gone with the traditional Farm Boy. Not necessarily because I'm just a fanboy of Farm Boy, but I think if it's the difference, I mean, what do you want to draw into with the Village Elder? It's not like you're cycling all your cards every turn. Most likely you will have expensive cards in hand anyway, so I don't think the additional draw is possibly worth the additional Faeria that you play for the Village Elder as opposed to the Farm Boy.
Yeah, I mean, it's debatable. It's just he's just basically using it as a deck thinner, maybe get to the key cards he needs a little faster. But yeah, it does cost extra Faeria, so, hard to say for sure. There's also that risk, having those low-cost cards in your deck when you play a bargain. By the way, for those who don't know, bargain decks, well, there you go, Bold Bargainer. You play a card like that will reduce a random card in your hand by 7 cost. But if you have that Village Elder, and there's a risk that you lose it all, and basically that's game once that happens. But in this case, it's not a huge risk. Gets the Queen's Guard there. Ideally, would have gotten Magnus for maximum value, but Queen's Guard is no slouch, and looks like he's even going to play it this turn. Yep.
Yeah, and he's kind of offering a value trade with the Triton Warrior into his Bargainer, but he knows he has a Ground Shaker in hand in order to clear it off the turn afterwards, so I think that's very fine for Alva. Or even go for the clear with the Queen's Guard to get additional Faeria if he needs it.
Yeah, yep. 3 damage on either creature either creature there that would contest the Triton Warrior with the Ground Shaker follow-up is the plan for all of our Imperia. Has the option of using Prophet of Tides. Now, we saw last game what he did with that. He could go and clear that Village Elder. Last game, that would have been well, first of all, they would have both been Triton Trainers with a campfire involved. But anyway, you could do basically the same move this turn and get that aggressive land, which is important. You need to double Prairie for that. So that's one option that stands out. But of course, here in the Monthly Cup, in the third place match, every turn has about 3,000 different options. And it's the job of these players who have incredible amounts of experience to determine which is the right line or the best line, potentially. And he is going to do the Prophet of Tides play, but a little bit differently than I thought. Still the same result. Boom, boom, down to the Village Elder, and smack. And there you go.
Yeah, interesting. I was just looking for an opportunity to kill the Village Elder with the Ninja Toad and collect from the well at the same time, but I don't think it was possible due to the island that he would have needed. Even so, I think Alva is very fine with how this early game played out so far, because he managed to drop a couple of cheap creatures, get the profit of those huge cost reductions from the double bolt bargainer, and the Ground Shaker is definitely going to be a big play, which he most likely will go for now, just to kill the profit.
And Magnus keeps dodging these bargains. There's been 3 bargains played. He hasn't got a single one he wanted so bad. Look at him with his 10 Faeria. He just wants it to be 3. There is a free Ground Shaker here that will clear off this profit, stop that harvesting, start getting control of the board, trade out with that bargainer to get rid of that. Okay, he's saving it. I wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah, me neither, actually. I have to say I'm fine with Magnus dodging the reduction, because you don't just bust out Magnus in like turn 3 or something. It just needs to build up the tension until he finally goes down to break his opponent's back. Hopefully, maybe not. We'll see about that. But yeah, really surprising that he chooses not to play the Ground Shaker. I'm not really sure what the reasoning behind it. Most likely he's hoping to get additional value off it later on, but I'm not so sure, especially if you look at the Aurora that Imperia just threw into, which he might just use now to buff his profit.
Yeah, and you do want to worry about playing that Magnus early, especially against blue. I mean, we know Imperia has 2 Frogifys in hand, but you expect they always have a Frogify in hand. So you want to dry out those Frogifys, but what other targets do you have? Not too many. So yeah, hold on to that Magnus. Maybe it's best. Maybe it's best as just a Ground Shaker, and I agree with you. Oh, well, there's Aurora. Okay, well, there's a big card come and gone for Imperia. He no longer has to worry about Aurora coming down. Oh, my goodness. Well, this sets up for an even better Ground Shaker. Maybe he saw into the future and clear off 2 creatures here. And, yeah, okay, he has Ogre Battler, so there's another good Frogify target. So he's going to want to absorb Frogifys until eventually he can get out a safe Magnus, perhaps. But Ground Shaker certainly seems like the play this turn. Now he has the option of playing it on the right to trade off with the profit, which is kind of bad. But he doesn't have too much to worry about as far as a trick now that Aurora is gone that would clear the Ground Shaker for free. Queensguard makes things interesting, but I still think you just Ground Shaker.
To be fair, I think if Alva is playing heads up right now, he might suspect that Imperia has a second Frogify in hand, because otherwise I don't really think that he would have gone for that Frogify on the Queen's card right now, because he has to know that the bargain deck has bigger threats than Queen's cards in that he might need the Frogify for. Even then, I think it's very valuable for Alva to have gotten out a Frogify in trade for a Queen's guard when he has so much more expensive creatures in hand.
Yeah, and Alvar did choose to play the Queen's Guard. Yep, he wants to take the trade. He wants that Prophet of Tides to hit that Queen's Guard. That's what he wants to happen. Imperia, he almost has to do that. You don't want to, like we're talking about, you don't want to waste a Frogify right now. Probably just best to take the trade. You can play a Triton Trainer. Now, Triton Trainer is going to make that Ninja Toad, whenever it does come out, be a real big problem. A really strong unit to play. But it can't happen this turn. So I think at this point he's just wondering, where do I play my Triton Trainer? Where's the best place to play it? I can just play it back in the double harvesting position, get rid of my Prophet of Tide, and you just draw it. Yes, it's drawing a a Wave Crash Colossus, which is still 6 costs. So yeah, it just looks like a Triton Trainer turn to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Triton Trainer most likely is going to be the play. Maybe in the middle next to his orb, because he doesn't necessarily want to have it in the right spot, because he most likely won't be able to contest the lower well next turn. But you'll have to find out. Yeah, it seems like he goes for the placement. I think if he gets the options, he'd really like to trade away the Bold Bargain on the left with this Ninja Toad and also collect off others well at the same time, probably next turn with the buff.
Yeah, and that was the most obvious play, but also, sometimes you want to think everything through. So that may be the first thing you think of to that turn, but of course he waited to the end of his turn to do it. That's because he's thinking through all the different possible outcomes and future turns and a lot of things that are just a little bit more subtle that you might not think of right away. And these players in the third place match with $500 on the line, basically, they're going to take as much time as they can. That turn was interesting, just a double basic there. Stretching out his arms is Alvar and just letting this Triton trainer do what it wills. Perhaps trade into the there's almost no reason you'd trade into that ground shaker. There's a campfire in hand, so at this point you're in a difficult spot, I'd say, as Imperia. You're Frogify, like we're talking about this whole time. You know this Frogify is going to have some valuable targets. You know your opponent is running Bold Bargainers, Ogre Dances. Now, he hasn't dropped a Big Daddy yet. He hasn't dropped an Ogre Battler or a Magnus. So far, the biggest unit he's played are these Ground Shakers, I think. Am I correct? I think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But you would expect it. You expect they're coming. So he's thinking, what do I do with this Frogify? When do I use it? Do I use it now and clear off this Ground Shaker? If he does, he's going to regret it.
Yeah, I don't really think he can afford to use the Frogify now. He has to wait and see if he manages to get a more high-value target for it. And by the placement of the lands and just passing the turn, we can see Alvar feels very confident in his ability to just stall out this game to the late game and grind out a win by his high-value creatures in his board. But actually, Imperia does drop into the second one, so he values the board pressure over the late game implications. But now, as we can see with the Ground Shaker in hand and even the Ignis maybe, he's in a very strong spot.
Well, he can't Ignis this turn. It'll take 3 mountains, and he'll have to get to the Faeria. But yeah, Ground Shakers is the simple punishment there. He did go for the Frogify. Now, the benefit of the play he did do, it reduces Wave Crash Colossus to 4, so he can play that now this turn. But that Ground Shaker was just punishing for that line of play, and you have to think about that when you're going against red always. But the 7/7 comes out, and that's what all of his hope is in right now.
Yeah, and I think it's actually not that bad, because even the Ogre Battler can't kill off the Colossus in one swing. So I'm not sure what the most likely play here right now is for Alvar. Does he save up for like the Magnus or the Gaudan next turn, or does he feel pressured to play a big creature? And it seems like he goes for the Ogre Battler just in order not to get into a race situation, which he might end up losing if Imperia draws into a second Colossus or something.
And there comes the Ogre Battler. There goes Imperia saying, oh, I wish I had my Frogify. I really need it right now. I really have no other answer to this other than just trade my units into it, slam the Colossus into it, and then play that Ninja Toad, which is actually 5/4 from the Triton Trainer. And he can even campfire it if he wishes. But it's just poor trades. You're putting your creatures down to 1 health again to be at risk for any sort of red trick. Now, we mentioned Ignis earlier, but not only does he not have the Faeria for it, but he still needs that 3rd mountain. So that's not going to be a concern. But look at Alvar's deck. Just so at this point, he's lasted this long. He's feeling pretty comfortable because he has a lot of tools to stall the game. He has lots of taunts. He has 3 Queen's Guards, 3 Ogre Battles. I'm just assuming he maxed them out. So all these taunts to hold off his opponent. And once he gets to the point where his deck is fully rolling with all the discounts and all the bargains, you've got to deal with 3 legends in his hand, 3 legendaries. Ignis, Garrett, and Magnus, which just represents so much value. Ignis is a little trickier to use. You don't see him too often, but he can definitely provide a lot of value when uncontested.
Yeah, he also has the Baron Folga. We saw that earlier.
Yes, right, yeah.
I would love to see Baron Folga now, to be honest.
Yeah, it wouldn't be too bad either for him. I mean, what's the worst that Imperia's going to draw? Nothing too expensive. The Colossus already discount. My dogs agree. So Red Devil here, drawn by Alvar. 9 cost. No discounts. He's played a lot of discounts so far. 1 Ogre Dance, 2 Bargainers, if I've been counting correctly, but he still has that Fulgar as well. So it's just going to be old-fashioned playing cards for the value they are, for the cost they really are, from this point on. Doesn't look like he's heading toward Ignis still.
Yeah, I mean, you have so many expensive cards in hand, so sometimes you will get to a point where you just have to wait a turn in order to play something next turn. And it seems like that's what Alva is designed to go for. And actually, it looks as if he gets, as if Imperial gets a double trade with this Colossus, which is definitely not the worst he could hope for, because he paid for Faeria for the Colossus, and Alva paid 8 for the Ogre Battler, and he does draw into the second. So that's actually a really huge pickup, in my opinion.
Yeah. He can choose to hit face this turn for 7 damage if he wants. Super risky, but it is an option. Otherwise, just clear off, play the other Colossus. Alvar has set himself up for an Ignis. That's exactly what that play was last turn. Getting the 3rd mountain up, he'll go to 8 Faeria by default without any harvesting. He can drop an Ignis, ping for Faeria, do a bunch of damage. So you really, Imperia really doesn't want anything with 1 health staying on the field. So whether he knows it or not, he wants to get rid of the 7-1. He wants to clear the 6-2 with it and play another Wave Crash Colossus in his place. 7/7 is really bulky. Ignis isn't going to hurt it too much, and then you go from there.
And what he
but of course,
also do is play the Ninja Tower to get rid of the Ogre Battler. Yeah. And then probably play the Campfire on his Colossus and go face.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's doing. It does leave him with 2 health. Now, Ignis will do 4. Ignis will do 4 damage split between random enemies. So it's pretty much 50-50 here. Is it going to hit the creature twice, or is it going to hit the orb twice? Oh, there's also a Hellfire that makes things a heck of a lot easier. I guess we could say heck, even though the card is called Hellfire. I think he's just going to do that. What do you think? Oh, sorry. Plus, I messed up. There was a water elemental on the field, so the odds are really low. Ignis kills the 8-2, by the way.
Yeah, actually, and like people in the chat just pointed out, Garona is just a safe option.
Yeah.
Yeah,
why even
break Imperial's back?
Sorry, I was interrupting you. Yeah, why even worry about all the random damage when you can just Garrotin? It's guaranteed kill. And I was looking at all these different possibilities, but Garrotin is just so much easier. 10 Faeria, done and done. 0 Faeria now for Elvar, and Imperia has to come back with just that Wave Crash Colossus. It's all he can do. Garrotin's in range of it, though. It takes him to 1.
Yeah, but I mean, even then it's still 7/7, so it can't be killed off in one shot. So Alva would need any kind of additional damage in order to take care of it. So might just actually get to hit face, but even then he's still quite a bit of damage off these. And it's not like he has a ton of Ninja Toads. I think he has like 1 Ninja Toad remaining in this deck. So yeah, I'm not sure if the race is that winnable for Imperial. It's definitely his best shot, in my opinion, at staying in the game, going aggressive.
Queen's Guard is an expensive taunt to lay here to just delay the game, to be a chump blocker, but Alvar can certainly afford that. He's got control of 3 of the Faeria Wells. He's in no rush. He has gigantic cards in his hand, hugely impactful cards. Every single one of these that he plays will be a real big deal. Red Devil's a little bit of a risk to play against blue, but we've already talked about how these Frogifies are being used. There's a Mirror Phantasm in hand, though. Okay, Prophet of Tides comes over, says goodbye, Garrotin. He's even able to harvest as well, and that puts Alvar in a spot where he's even more comfy, more safe against lethal. This 1 health Colossus could be dealt with if he chooses the Hellfire. Oh my goodness, it just seems like the most obvious thing to do. Here we go.
Yeah, it's Hellfire, absolutely.
Well, odds are both creatures were destroyed, and guess what? They are. 11 health left for Imperia. Another Wave Crash Colossus, which is great, but certainly a big hill to climb for him.
Yeah, but he just keeps drawing into these Wave Crash Colossus, which kind of keep him in the game, even though by all right, I think he probably should have been out of the game a couple turns ago, but this is 3rd Wave Crash Colossus. So after, if Alva manages to deal with this one, he won't have that much gas left in the tank, actually, to close out the game. So he really has to hope for a high impact of this Colossus.
This is, his engine is running dry. Look at Alvar's hand. He has 4 legends in it. He's hardly even been able to play his most impactful cards. He's just been winning this game off of ground shakers, and there was a Hellfire. But bargains haven't even come into this too much except the early game. Baron Thulgar, he might not even want to play because he's at such an advantage now. You don't want to risk. You don't want to risk like hitting a Mirror Phantasm for your opponent or something like that. But hey, he doesn't care. He's going all in. There's Baron. And yeah, he's just chump blocking that wave crash.
I'm loving the Baron Thulgar play. I hope that it's going to die so we can actually see what these guys draw for free of it.
I mean, it could be a big deal if a Mirror Phantasm comes off of that. For those who don't know, Baron Thulgar, its last words, each player draws a card and they cost 0. So you want to play Baron when you have a deck that has a lot of very high-cost cards. And as we see, Alvar has a lot of very high-cost cards. But Imperia doesn't. He only has a few, and Mirror Phantasm is basically, I think, the highest. But Alvar does not want to land on a Village Elder either, so a little bit to chance there. He's chosen to put that card in his deck. Triton Trainer is a 3/3 with a Campfire onto that Wave Crash Colossus. We'll put him at 5 health, which is just out of range of Fulgar lethal, we'll say.
Yeah.
Ogre Dance drawn. Go ahead.
Ogre Dance, very interesting. We'll have to see if he prefers to play the Cypher before he goes for the Ogre Dance, just to make maximum use of the reduction. But I don't really see a very a safe option for him to get rid of the Wave Crash Colossus this turn with his current hand.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a risk here. 1 out of 5 if he plays the Ogre Dance to hit the Cypher, which would be a loss of 2 Faeria. Anything else he hits would be great. Maybe the worst of which could be Red Devil, because playing that could play into a Mirror Phantasm, but you're still going to end up in a pretty great spot. Is he going to trade with Fulgar here? I don't... Maybe he's worried about a Frogify or something? Okay.
Free Ogre Battler for the victory. I mean, not for the victory, but yeah, it's still great.
Yeah, a free 8 Faeria creature for Alvar. Meanwhile, a free 4 Faeria Battletoads for Imperia. So a net gain of 4 Faeria. Of course, it costs him Baron Thulgar, which is dead now, so it's not exactly that cut and dry. But certainly, a 0-cost Ogre Battler is nice to see. It will destroy the Wave Crash Colossus and survive with 1 health. But I think we're going to have to see a Mirror Phantasm here. But no Faeria to play it, so we'd have to harvest and then pop a Faeria, which puts him even more vulnerable because now his Triton Trainer's at risk. Imperia's just in a tough spot.
Yeah, and it seems like Alvar values having multiple options next turn on what he wants to play instead of going for more pressure on the board right now by playing the Ogre Dance. I'm not really sure if I agree with the choice because he could have just played the Ogre Dance and chose not to play whichever he get reduced. He still has 2 collectors on the board, but maybe he wants to have the option of definitely going for Ignis or Magnus next turn.
You know, Magnus has been such a trooper. He's just been sitting in hand all game long. Alvar is almost close enough to playing this Ignis as well. You know, every turn I just think, what could Ignis do? What would Ignis do? I guess you should ask yourself that every turn if you play him. But he's chosen not to use him. Ogre Dance, looking pretty good. Next turn he's able to get that Cypher out and then play the Ogre to guarantee that extra value, which I think he's looking for. I'm trying to get into his head and trying to think why he's not playing some of these cards. There's the Mirror Phantasm. He did opt for that play that I mentioned earlier. Trades out. The Triton Trainer is going to possibly be destroyed by the Ground Shaker, but now the position he played that Phantasm makes me think he's just going to use the Ground Shaker to clear that off, which will require him to make a land. 11 Faeria. All these cards in hand. Ignis is in hand. That's an option. I don't think Ignis is going to be great, though. Ground Shaker would be great. What do you think?
I don't know. This is just such a fight fest. I mean, both players are like 2/3 through their deck by now. I still think Alvar might want to play the Cypher before he plays the Ogre Dance, and then just roll with whatever he gets reduced, or maybe just try and get one of the Red Devils out first. I don't know. He just has so much. I mean, he has like 70 value worth of Faeria in hand or something like that.
Yeah, and there's a risk after he did... Okay, so he's going to use Ogre Dance now. So there's a 1-cost Ogre Battler. Yeah, there's a risk if he played the Cypher first and then Ogre Dance, he wouldn't be able to play the Magnus after, I think, if I did that math right. 5-3... Yeah, I think it would have been 1 off. Anyway, didn't matter. He ends up getting it on the Ogre Battler. The Ground Shaker does clear off that 5/5 Mirror Phantasm. 1-cost Ogre Battler, just slightly worse than a 0-cost Ogre Battler, but not by much. At this point, after this turn, Alvar is going to be so confident that Imperia has no Frogifies, and that opens the door for everything in his deck. You got to remember also that Red Devil represents 5 Faeria on the board, just a huge tempo invested in that card, a huge amount of tempo. And at this point, Imperia, what can you do? Out of Frogifies, no way. I guess you just got to hit the face. Is that even what you would do here? Take him to 8 and hope for something, because how are you gonna outvalue this deck at this point?
To be completely honest, I kind of feel like Alva has gambled away a bit of the advantage he had a couple of turns earlier, because Imperia is definitely not out of the game right now. He has a couple of creatures on the board. He has some Faeria. He can play most of his cards. I just can't help but feel like Alva could have tried and closed out the game more decisively, and now he's just banking on his ability to grind out a win in the later stages. But he's down to 8 cards, so it's not like he has an infinite amount of time to win this match. And if Imperia goes for the 4 face damage now, I don't know, maybe we might actually see like fatigue kick in at some point, especially if you consider playing the Magnus, which is close to being a danger to play right now, because he keeps drawing cards as long as he combats.
You're right. Fatigue is a liability. Magnus might be a liability, so maybe you don't want to play him at all at this point with so few cards left in your deck here in game 2. Imperia may be able to hold it off because Alvar's not being aggressive like you're talking about. He's not even close to doing orb damage to Imperia. There's no unit that's even close. He is going to go face here to take him to 8. Missing Piece will be able to play in the offensive position, but by playing it this way, Alvar's able to clear most of the board except for that Frog, which would take a Lucky Ignis to eliminate. Let's see here. Would you Ignis before doing any of this? No. If you're going to use Ignis, you clear the 3 creatures, and then you try it if that's what you want to do. Otherwise, you just don't play him at all. And it's not going to work anyway. He doesn't have the Faeria to do it.
Use Ignis this turn because you're 1 Faeria short.
Yeah.
And the cards that are kind of dead just keep stacking up in Alva's hand right now, because also he draws into the 2nd Village Elder right now, which is not necessarily what you want to play if you're down to 7 cards and you're not in a position where you have set up damage threatening to kill off Imperia. I mean, we can assume he has at least 1 more Hellfire in his deck, I think, but even that is not enough to close out. So he definitely wants to be playing any kind of aggressive card very soon, I think.
Yeah, I think Imperia wins this. Well, I think the way he wins this is through fatigue. How many more powerhouses does Alvar have to do damage to the orb, There aren't that many more. He's played a lot of his Ogre Battlers. He has 1 Ground Shaker left. It's going to end up being Magnus having to hit the orb for lethal, but every time he hits the orb, he draws a card and gets closer to fatigue.
Yeah, exactly. So it's probably like Ignis and maybe an aggressive Red Devil or something like that. Imperia chooses to play the 3rd Frogify, and so that's definitely all he has regarding those. Maybe he has a 2nd Mirror Phantasm unit yet. He can even play the buffed Triton Warrior next turn as a 6/6 dump, which is also a pretty big threat. And that just has 1 creature left on the board right now.
Yeah, and that'll deal with the Cypher. That takes care of that. He did lose his last Frogify there. I think that was the 3rd. So Alvar can breathe a breath of relief. As far as that's concerned, I don't think we'll see the Village Elder come down at all. In fact, the only real playable card that looks even tempting at all is a Ground Shaker, and it's a little bit of a waste on just a 3/3. You really want to save that Ground Shaker for when that 6/6 Shrine Warrior comes down and it trades with the Cypher. Then you finish off with the Ground Shaker. So it's actually either Village Elder or nothing this turn, I think. And Village Elder does put you towards fatigue, but it's not like it's super pressing. There's 6 cards left in deck, so there's still a lot of time. Only 11 health for Imperia. And yeah, we got things like Ignis. And Ground Shaker is definitely going to consider him, he's at 10, because Ground Shaker will take him to 10.
Yeah, but look, what I think I would have absolutely done this turn for Alva would be create a mountain at the top, near Imperia as well. Drop the Ground Shaker aggressively. It deals 1 damage to Imperia, so that's basically a 2-turn clock of the Ground Shaker, and now you're actually on the board in an offensive position. Now with instead he chooses to play the Village Elder, which will speed up his path towards fatigue. So he's definitely in a position now where he has to make sure he closes out this game in the next couple of turns, or we just dry out of cards.
He's going for face with the Sunken Tower, takes him to 5. At this point, if we were to play... Okay, yeah, he's only at 1 fairy after that, so not much he can do. 11 fairy, though, for Alvar. There's a lot of different options here. Hellfire is one of them, which has a high probability of clearing this off, especially if he hits with the Village Elder as well. There it is. He could Hellfire. He could just skip that. He could just Ignis for now. Now, the problem is you really want to take care of this 3-2. You can't take more face damage. You have no taunts left. You can't Ground Shaker and Hellfire. You can't Ignis and Hellfire. You can't Ignis and Ground Shaker. So I feel like you have to Hellfire and hope you clear that 3-2, or you're down to 2 health. And you're at the mercy of losing to a mere Phantasm. Which it wouldn't be playable, I suppose. But
I think Hellfire looks like the most likely play. Because I don't really think you want to risk the Ignis, because I think Imperia definitely has 1 Ninja Toad left in his deck, if I'm not mistaken. That would be lethal at this point if he gets to hit 1 more time with this trainer.
Yeah, Ninja Toad would be lethal. He wouldn't even need Mirror Phantasm. You're right. So there we go, Red Devil, and he does get it. Okay, he gets the Triton, and he does clear the Sunken Tower, and that's 6 health left for Imperia. Consider that to be 5 with the Ground Shaker. Will we see an Ignis lethal this game?
Yeah, but why did he not create the mountain at the top and drop the Red Devil there to threaten lethal?
Because he's so greedy. he's so greedy. He just wants to
hell-bent on closing out this game with Ignis, I hope, so we at least get to see something. But it just seems a bit risky, in my opinion, or not as aggressive as he could and maybe should have been.
Yeah, but then again, if we look at Imperia's options, there's not too many. He can't even put the Mystic Beast that he just drew in the aggressive position anymore. It's not by the enemy well. Cypher's taking that spot up. The next creature he does summon does get the Trainer buff from earlier, so at this point he needs to consider, do I try and clear off Cypher and try and go for Fatigue? At this point, Fatigue isn't looking good for Imperia either. He's got 2 cards left, so that's kind of looking like it's more against him now at this point.
Yeah, because he has been drawing so much. Maybe he should have gone for additional Faeria instead, because now he has a lot of cards in hand which he can't all play. He most likely was looking for his 3rd Ninja Toad, because I'm fairly certain he still hasn't drawn into it.
You're right. Yeah, if he has a Ninja Toad and he just draws it, he wins the game. There's no taunt. No taunt in Alvar's hand, nor on board. So Ninja Toad plus Trainer, which was played earlier, that's lethal. Imperia knows it. Alvar probably knows it. Alvar is basically on a clock. He's on the 1-turn clock if it's just drawn. There's 2 cards left in Imperia's deck. Now, I haven't been keeping track, and I don't know how many are in his deck. But let's assume one of those 2 cards is Ninja Toad. There's a 50-50 chance. Actually, there's a 100% chance.
Yeah, he definitely draws the game if he has it in his deck left. What Alva could try and do is to completely block off his orb. He'd need to play 2 creatures this turn, which should be possible, I think. He goes for... actually, is it possible? I'm not sure. If he goes for... No. Do we see the Ninja Toad?
Well, 1 card left. Mystic Beast drawn. No, nothing on the action wheel and the power wheel has been used. It is Imperia's turn. I'm looking. If he had it, he would just draw for it, right?
I'm just thinking of maybe he just doesn't run Third Ninja Toad because like I said, I'm fairly certain we've only seen 2 so far. Most likely he doesn't have it because he would have just drawn and
he had it. The slow play it was in all along. What was he thinking about? There it is, 5-4.
the BM way.
The BM, or maybe it was either BM or he's like all of a sudden he looked at his deck. Wait a minute, 1 card. Oh,
maybe after having played so many matches today, it was like did I play all of my? I mean, if you've played a tournament that goes for such a long time and it's in such a tight match, actually it can happen that you're not so sure anymore what you have left in your deck because you kind of lost track along the way. So maybe he just wasn't certain he had one left and he was checking all his options before that. But yeah, that's insane, and I definitely did not expect the game to pan out like it did. I still kind of feel like Abrak somehow dropped the ball along the way because he was in such a commanding position for most of the game, and then somehow he managed to get ground down by the two creatures without getting to play many of his high value cards in hand.
I feel like that kind of slipped away from Alvar. I mean, he was in such a commanding position. I think by not going aggressive earlier, maybe not getting that Ignis out earlier to start pinging with all that damage. I think there's a lot of different ways where he could have gotten more control. Instead, he kept giving chances for Imperial. Now, you have to keep in mind, Alvar probably had a lot of things in mind every single turn, such as, 5-4 Ninja Toes he has to defend against. So you can't really play against everything, but I feel like that almost... going back 10 minutes in time, I thought Alvar had it locked down. And here we go in Game 3, and Imperia's on match point. If Imperia wins this with his very first deck, which is his blue deck, which he has not needed to change, he wins third place. He wins this best-of-5 series. Alvar is going to go to his last deck that he'll have to win 3 games in a row with, and it's his yellow deck.
Well, I think if you have to win 3 matches in a row, Yellow Tempo or Yellow Events is as good a deck as any because it has a fair shot against many of the meta decks at the moment. But it's still going to be a tough feat, absolutely, because even taking down Imperia's mono blue deck is a pretty big task from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, and we have to mention again, this is late into the tournament. This tournament has been going on, 3, 4, it's almost on its 5th hour now. And if I did math correctly, I probably didn't, maybe 6th. But not only that, but each of these series is incredibly draining. Like a best of 5 with the highest level of play. Every single turn you think of, like we're talking about, 100 different things. So at this point in the tournament, your brain is a little bit fried. And it's difficult. It's difficult to make the perfect line every single time. Of course, these players are more than capable. At least we must believe so if they've made it this far in the Monthly Cup, which is certainly not easy, and only a few have done. Gonna just move that 2/4 Charger up into double harvesting position, which puts it at a little bit of a risk for any sort of transformation on that Frog, Aurora, or even, at this point, a mere Phantasm. Not going to happen, though, according to what we see. You all right there?
I think Charger is just such a strong creature to play against blue because, I mean, you don't want to frogify a Winsome Charger. You don't want to have to be able to buff your creatures in order to deal with it because it's just so cheap for the threat it poses. So I think it's very fine to just move up, collect, and threaten anything that Imperia puts down on his side of the board with the Charger next turn. And even if he chooses to try and get rid of the Charger, it's still very hard to lose value just because it's so cheap.
And this is always an interesting thing to me when you play your Shaitan Demon back towards your own orb, which of course does 2 damage to you at the beginning of every one of your turns. You're putting it there as insurance, basically. I think he's expecting his Charger to be destroyed this turn, and then he wants to use his Demon to follow up with some sort of attack and be able to harvest. But if that doesn't happen, he's going to be taking 2 damage every turn until, Imperia decides to clear it, which is totally on Imperia. There's a long way to go before that Shaitan Demon walks toward the orb, and he'll be forced to deal with it. So it could be one of those things where he just lets him continuously take more and more damage. Perhaps not, though, because here just comes Triton Trainer with Ninja Toad, the old 5/4, and that's familiar sight to Alvar. That's the guy who got lethal last game. He's back for more.
Yeah, let's hope it didn't trigger any PTSD from our side after that last match, which must have been a bit of a backbreaker mentally after grinding out the game and being in a commanding position for such a long time. So we'll have to see how he comes back now. Definitely a very strong play from Imperia right now, and we can see what the blue deck does best. It just has such a strong early setup with all the jump creatures that can move all over the board and collect from anywhere. And we'll have to see what other chooses to use in order to get back into the game.
Well, this Outland Ranger without a campfire is just going to be destroyed by a toad. So I have to imagine he's going to protect both of these Rangers against any sort of toad shenanigans, and there it is. He'll happily trade any of those for 2 toads.
Yeah.
2 Frogifys in hand for Imperia. Not a lot of good targets in Alvar's deck until he gets those Colossus down.
Yeah, definitely not the best card to have 2 in hand of at the moment. But if you look back at the tournament, these Frogifys have just been doing so much work for Imperia. So I guess he's probably not going to be heartbroken drawing to them early. And this campfire is just perfect, because now he can potentially clean off both Rangers by using the campfire on one and the Prophet of Tides to get the Triton Trainer in range of the other. And I definitely assume that's what he's going for.
Yeah, he prevents the enemy from harvesting and also is able to harvest from that bottom well himself, which is important for his deck, for his blue deck. So gets control of the board, gets control of the wells. I mean, hey, that's what Faeria is about a lot of the times. And here, today is no different. He's able to move this frog down and even be threatening for any other creature that are played by Alvar. Imperia is dominating in this match 3. He is 2-0 up against Alvar. Alvar is on the back foot.
Yeah, Alva is back to the wall, I think. He definitely has to hope to draw a Soul Drain very soon. But even then, just from a collection point of view, he's already so far behind, just a couple of turns into the match, that it seems a bit bleak on his side regarding his chances to stay in this game.
Now, Ninja Toad is not the greatest draw. Imperia doesn't have the greatest hand for what's on board. Now, he could just use a Frogify. He could just do that, which will secure the board, waste 1 Frogify, but he has more. He has another in hand even. So when that Windstorm Colossus does come down, which still costs 8 Faeria, it is a very expensive Verdant Force at this point. So it's not really that bad if it does come down. Looks like I think he is going to Frogify from the way he's playing this, or he could just Ninja Toad. But I think he's looking to clear this off to gain the board control. And all the while, remember, every single time he's harvesting from the bottom well like this, Wave Crash Colossuses get cheaper and cheaper. I guess Colossi would be the correct term. Imperia, the veteran Frenchman, this is his, 6th monthly cup? He's looking to get his first ever 3rd place. He's had 2 second places. Can he do it? Time of Legends, that's for a Kalim.
Yeah, man, most likely is. Interesting that Imperia did choose not to go for trading off the Demon there. Maybe he's just convinced that he's far enough in the game that he can afford to trade away a couple of his creatures and save the Frogify for the Colossi, which look like to be the best option for Alva to get back into this game if he manages to survive long enough in order to put them down. But Time of Legends definitely not the most amazing pickup right now, because it's basically one Faeria more expensive Kalim, and he doesn't even have 5 for the Kalim this turn. So he's going for the Fanatic just to have an additional option of clearing off creatures or going for collection, which is fine, I think. But I mean, look at Imperia. He has 11 Faeria. He can play basically anything he wants to.
He can clear the board this turn. He can play the old Triton Diver Ninja Toad combo if he wants, which could clear off the Erodrum Fanatic and leave a body on board to do further damage, barring any sort of Soul Drain or Falcon Dive effect. There's the Triton Trainer in the double harvesting position. Ninja Toad comes down in range of the Erodrum Fanatic, pops it off, makes an aggressive lake, clears the board, gets board control, and Alvar has a Windstorm Charger that he can play. A Time of Legends as well. There's just no real way to get those Windstorm Colossus down far enough. He's going to have to take 5 damage to the face next turn, probably. Outland Ranger can come down, play a Campfire, get the Windstorm cheaper. It's all about getting to the Windstorms at this point for Alvar.
Yeah, but will he survive long enough in order to play them? That's one of the big issues you have if you're playing a Windstorm and multiple Windstorm Colossi and you draw them very early into the game. It's compared to the blue Colossi, they are just a bit harder to get out early game. And then sometimes you can just get a hand where they are just stuck because they are too expensive to play and you can't really get any collector down just because you have these dead cards in hand instead.
He just passes. He passed his turn completely, playing nothing. That's 5 damage on the face from the Ninja Toad. He can use a Mirror Phantasm here to heal that back up, to put it out, and that's what he does. Put it out of Soul Drain range, which he didn't even have in hand. He didn't know that, though. He's just playing against everything. Last Nightmare is drawn. If he plays this, there's almost lethal on board. 8 damage plus. There is lethal on board. I think it's game. I think Imperia, with his blue deck, he's going to take it undefeated in his third place match, and he just doesn't even bother. GG, he surrenders. The Last Nightmare, he could have done something there, I think, right? He could play Last Nightmare, but anyway, it didn't matter. I think he saw the cards were not in his favor. The blue deck was too much for him. Alvar will take 4th place and $100, which is, of course, nothing to be ashamed about. Getting this far is nothing to be ashamed about. Imperia, though, taking 3rd place, which is not his highest monthly cup placement, but it is his first 3rd place placement. That's $500 for him. Congratulations. That was a really great series, and really illustrated the power of Imperia's blue deck, but not only the power of it, but how well he's able to pilot it.
Yeah, absolutely. He came back with a vengeance in the 3rd place match and seemed like he had a point to prove, and he did so. With a couple of hard-fought matches, especially the second one against the red bargain deck. So yeah, really nice to see that match play out with a couple surprising twists. And now I'm all hyped up to see the finals and see what these players bring to the table.
Yes, it's not over yet. There is one match remaining, and it is what you might say is it's the grand finals. The grand finals are left. And that's it for us. Thank you very much, Zologrim, for casting with me. And thanks, guys, for having me. I think we're going to move on now to the final match, and we'll pass it back to the desk.
Another clean sweep for Imperia with that blue jump deck. Well played to him. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. Scorch. Any thoughts on that series?
I think that was really an incredible showing from Imperia. I think Alvar in the blue game, in the mirror to start off, and then I think that yellow game as well at the end, a little bit unlucky in Alvar's starting hands of not really having anything to follow up. Imperia just had that unbelievable movement trick turn 2 in the blue game that really set the course for him to win that very easily, and then really nice follow-up with the Battletoads into the Ninja Toads there in game number 3. I actually want to talk about the deck choice a little bit, because I'm surprised Alvar went for the Red Bargainer against the blue jump. In the series that we saw him play earlier, he actually picked that same thing. Lost with his blue jump in game number 2. I think that was against Sweetie that we saw. Lost with his blue jump, and then that was against Sweetie's blue jump, decided to go for that Red Bargainer, lost that, and then went to the yellow events and was actually able to win with yellow events against the blue. So I'm surprised he went back to that Red Bargainer instead of going to the yellow events, and just wasn't able to pick up any wins there. But very strong play from Imperia coming out.
I feel that both players are probably a little tired going into that second game, because you, Capu, and myself, we were just like we were commenting on the match as it was playing out, and both players had some very interesting ideas on how to win that game. Like we figured that they would try and go to fatigue, but then they kept drawing cards. There was a situation where I felt Imperia could have used a Prophet of the Tides to move his 2/2 Frog to clear the 5/1 Ground Shaker. The guaranteed he kept a power on the left side of the board to push more damage. There was a situation where he could have just set up any creature with jump at his orb, and then the next turn he could have profit for the lethal. But I think he was kind of tunnel vision Ninja Toad draw, and it kind of maybe clouded any of a line for him. But overall, that was a fun match. We got to see Alvar perform very well. First timer here, taking 4th place. That's nothing to be ashamed of. He did very well, and he brought bargain control. Gotta love that.
And we won't really know how many matches he won on it unless he reveals those stats himself, but unfortunately we saw 2 losses on it. Hopefully it picked up a win here and there, and it didn't end up kind of backfiring for him throughout the course of the day of just selecting to bring that deck. But yeah, very interesting choice coming out to see that come through.
I know. Now we have Teddy going up against Zarakar in the finals. That is going to be a fantastic game. Teddy and Zarakar have been performing so well over the last 2 months, both on ladder and in tournaments. So it's going to be an exciting final conclude to see who will become our Monthly Cup 10 champion. But before that match starts, we're going to cut to a break, and then we'll be back with the finals. Stay tuned, guys.